Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financial Advocate Podcast. I am here with Steve Pronechen, and today we are going to be talking about all things sales. I think it's a great time to talk about something like this because I felt personally that it's been a little bit taboo to sell right now, but at the same time, sales are what drives the economy. That's the one thing we're trying to keep going while this craziness is keeping us locked in. So I think sales is super important. And we'll get into all that. But I really wanted to give Steve a chance to introduce himself and talk about his story, and then we'll start getting into the thick of it. So, how are you, Steve?
Hey, I'm doing well, Ryan, and thanks a lot for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you and to talk about a topic that some people is a little taboo right now,
Right. Yeah.
which is sales and trying to sell during the pandemic.
Right. But as I was saying, it seems like something that we not only should do but have to do, because one of the things that's the biggest worry is if we're shutting down the economy, what's the long-term effects and how it hurts people. So I think sales are still important, and it's important to give back when you can. So I don't think you need to be ruthless, but I think that's something we'll get into too, is,
hmm
some of the tactics that you can use to still be a good person and you sell at any time.
Absolutely, yeah. We definitely want to be sensitive to the state of affairs and where everybody is, in their personal lives and the economy right now. But at the same time, like you said, we can't just stop sales altogether, because if we do that, the dollars aren't going to come in. No companies are going to generate revenue, and almost everybody's going to be out of a job. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to jump in a little bit of background, sort of around how I got into sales, and we can take it from there. Sound good?
Absolutely. You're talking about jobs. So how did you start, and tell us about the climb?
Yeah, sure. So I actually did not necessarily know that I wanted to get in sales originally. It was something that I fell into. And when I graduated college, I actually wanted to get into the financial services sector, because I'm a really analytical person. And the financial sector appealed to me because I'd be able to help tie my compensation to my performance. So having that incentive to, really perform was something that really stood out to me. And then when I graduated college, it was in 2008, and that was when the economy bottomed out across the world.
Hmm.
And I majored in political science, so I didn't have any experience in the field. I did not have any type of business internship related experience either. So the way that I kind of got to sales, I actually started off with a company called Tango, and I started off in the operations side of the team, and I was actually at the very bottom of the corporate ladder in the mailroom, processing invoices. And when I said the mailroom, we were literally getting the mail truck would come in the morning with all of our clients' invoices. We'd take a huge stack of invoices and just run them through the electronic slicer, date stamp them, and enter some of the key information right into our software system. And then it would kind of go through the funnel there, and then we would work our magic to help our clients save money. So it's funny. I started off there, and then I worked my way up, pitching in, being a team player, taking on additional responsibilities, because nobody wants to really stay in the mailroom
Yeah.
for their whole career, right?
Right.
So I worked my way up onto the operations team, and then it was actually through sort of internal networking, through our softball league that we have, that I made my way over to the sales team. And that's where I met our VP of sales at the time. And I never met him before that. So I met him during softball. And I said to
Wow.
myself, who is this guy? Because I've never met him before, but you could tell that he was clearly the leader of the team, and everybody respected him. And when he spoke, everybody listened, and he was really kind of bringing the energy and
Yeah.
giving the team the motivation that we needed to rally.
Sure.
And I found out, yeah, that he was the VP of sales over there. So, long story short, I asked him if there was a potential to have any other sales folks that they were looking to hire. And he said, hey, what I could do is I could set you up with our other head of sales here and get you an interview to see if you may be able to be a fit on the team. So that's how I got my foot in the door there with the interview. And I'll never forget one of the questions that he asked me. And the reason why I want to bring it up is I've never heard it since then. It's not a standard interview question, but one of
Hmm.
the questions he asked me was, if you could have dinner with anybody in the world, dead or alive, who would you take to dinner?
Wow.
So talk about a curveball.
Yeah.
And I was thinking quickly on my feet. So at the time I said that I wanted to I would go with dinner with one of the co-founders of Google, because that they're always innovative and staying ahead of the technology curve and coming out with the newest products to help people increase production and streamline efficiencies. So I went that route. I know one of my other friends that joined the team too, I think his answer, he said he would go with Jimi Hendrix.
Okay, still a good answer.
So yeah, and it's really just to get people to think and kind of get a sense for their personality,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So I started off in sales. I wasn't actually selling just yet, right? Because I had to get the nuts and bolts down. So I was on the research team, and that's where I was responsible for identifying the specific prospects and the target accounts that our sales team would reach out to. So I'd build out the profile of that, right? Their annual revenue, their industry, their employee size. And then I'd also find the specific people within that organization that we would target for outreach. And once that account was done, we would then hand it off to our SDRs, which are sales development reps. And their goal was specifically to do the cold outreach, generate interest, and generate those new meetings, which we would then hand off to a sales rep that would take the deal the full cycle, which would typically be during our solution set, be anywhere from 6 to 9 months and sometimes longer. And we'll get that into a little bit. So I started off there on the research side, and then I worked my way up. I was promoted. I was an SDR, so then I was doing the lead generation work, where now I would get that account, and I'd be the person on the other end of the call, calling people to learn about the challenges that they were having and share with them how we could help them improve their
step.
operational efficiencies, and help them reduce their telecom expenses. And because a lot of times in organizations, people, they don't even know at their own company who handles them. It's usually somebody in IT, but the person that does handle them, they're oftentimes wearing multiple hats. So the challenge is people will just eyeball the invoice, and if it's close to what it was the month before, they just pay it and off they go, and they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Mm-hmm. So that was our value prop, that we'd help them save money by letting our subject matter experts audit and review their invoices and help optimize their mobile environment, but without getting too deep in the weeds over there. So I was in an SDR role where I was doing the lead gen. I did that for a little over a year. I was a top performer on the team. And then I was promoted, and I was the first rep on the team to help lead a new sales initiative for our company, where Tango typically sold to organizations that had over $1 billion and more in annual revenue. And the reason for that was, traditionally and historically speaking, in any organization that was lower than that, there wasn't really enough ROI positive incentive for us to go after that particular client. So they started putting together a package where we'd be able to go after that, what we deemed as the mid-market, right? So they wanted me to come on board and help lead that charge. So I was the first rep that was hired there. And I was in that role for a little over 2.5 years. I helped lead the team in new logo acquisitions. And then I also have experience, managing a team of sales development reps as well. And that was a global team. So I have a well-rounded experience generating my own leads. So I know what it's like for newer recent grads that are just getting into sales, as well as, seasoned sales account executives that are going after running long sales cycles. And for the folks that may be listening that aren't aware of what typically is involved in an enterprise sales cycle and what that looks and feels like, I'll give you a 10,000 foot overview. So the sales cycles usually, as I mentioned earlier, they take anywhere from 6 to 9 months, and sometimes they take multiple years. And the reason why they take so long is that there's multiple stakeholders that are involved across different business units. So for this particular sale, we'd be selling into, the IT department. Procurement would usually be involved, because they would be the ones that would also be making sure, whenever they're doing sourcing for any solutions, they would get involved in the vendor evaluation process. And then depending on the way the organization's structured, finance might also get involved as well. Either maybe the CFO might have to sign off for budgetary approval, or somebody else on his team, like the treasurer, might need to get his signature as well, his or her signature as well. So it's and when we did it, it wouldn't all just be on me or on any one particular rep to sell the deal. We would go into this with a solutions architect that would really help speak to the solution from a technical standpoint and help make sure that the client's technical requirements were satisfied and that we were really tailoring the solution to their specific environment. Because while a lot of the challenges might be the same, each organization, as you can imagine, Ryan, they're all going to be unique. They're all going to be unique.
Absolutely, yeah. So I
So
guess then the first thing you're trying to figure out is what do you need, and you want to make sure you have the team behind you to answer those questions.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So moving up all the way and being able to deal with all those positions, you've had experience in every sector of that business cycle and seeing it all the way through. I'm sure going for the jobs and climbing the ladder, you dealt with rejection. I'm sure making that big jump from analyzing the data to selling the data was dealing with a lot of rejection. So that's one of the things I think is biggest among sales and is biggest in the industry. What has been your experience with that? And what has been your mindset to carry you through?
Yeah, and when I first got into sales too, right, the first thing that I thought of was, oh wait, this is a great way where I can make some additional commission and get a bigger paycheck if I'm working harder and smarter. This is something that I could
Right.
do. And you see the movies, and it's kind of glamorized sales, but what people don't talk about is, as you point out, the rejection. And coming out of college, I got good grades, and you're used to getting your performance based on a letter grade. So if I get 90 or above, it's an A, and so forth. But in sales, it's completely different. It's more, I use the comparison of a batting average, where if you bat 333 every year, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. And that's at a letter grade, that's an F.
Right.
So
Right.
really being
Right.
able to wrap my mindset around that and realize, what, you don't need to be, you're not going to be, getting new meetings, especially as a lead generation, 9 out of every 10 calls that you make. I mean, that's unheard of. If you're
Yeah.
getting 1 out of 10, usually, to give a breakdown again for people that aren't familiar with sales, if you're making cold calls, and if you make 100 calls a day, you may get 10 people that answer the phone. you know
Right.
1 or 2 of those people might say they're busy and just hang up on you immediately. You might get a couple other people where they said that it's just not right, or maybe they might give you direction. So you may get anywhere from 2 to 3 people that you actually get a chance to have a conversation with. So I think patience and rejection really tie together.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest lesson was not taking that rejection personally. And it was difficult at first, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was all sunshine and rainbows. It was tough. And the way that I approached it, making sure not to internalize that rejection and say, what, it's part of the job. It's the nature of the beast. And if I had a bad call, or if somebody else just hung up on me for whatever reason, then you have to pick up the phone and go again. So it's a clean slate. And I forgot who told this to me early in my career. So I wish I could credit them for it, but it stuck with me. And the person told me, they said, the way that you have to look at it, Steve? And I said, how? Because I'd love to know the golden rule. And
Right.
they said, every no is one step closer to a yes. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So I realized that, even if I had the first half of the day, if I didn't gain much traction, then I knew, what, this is a fresh new second half. And then if sometimes, like in any profession, you might have bad days altogether. So it's being able to go to sleep at night and say, hey, was the effort there? And if the effort was there, and if I did everything that I could, now I'd be able to wake up the next morning, be reinvigorated, and still have that passion and that fire, and saying, okay, yesterday wasn't the best day, but today's the day, and today's the day we're going to make it happen. So I think that's the thing that's really overlooked, and especially not only for folks that are just getting into sales, but even for some of the more seasoned sales professionals out there, it's still not internalizing that rejection and having that not let it knock your confidence, and still believing in yourself and your abilities to help go out there and help solve challenges that organizations are facing today with either your solution or your services that your company is offering.
A lot of the thing I see you mentioning too is always offering value to the other person, solving problems, delivering solutions. So I think one of the biggest parts, I guess, is that helps you carry through too, is that you know you're doing the right thing and you're really trying to help somebody. One of the biggest things I think in sales that's hard is if you're not sure about what you're selling, or you're not confident about it, or you don't think you really provide any value, then the only thing you attach yourself to is the money. And if the money doesn't come, then I would imagine you start to, as the money doesn't come, you start to feel it harder and harder. The weight gets heavier and heavier. And I'm not sure if you've had that experience, but I know developing a strong mindset is important to realize that it doesn't come right away. And that's just something that you kind of have to get through.
Yeah, and you made an excellent point there about the confidence not only in yourself, but really having belief and seeing the value in what your product does and how it can help organizations address challenges that they're facing. Because if you have a product that doesn't work, or if you don't believe in it, that's going to translate when you're having conversations. Your enthusiasm is going to be down. And again, at the end of the day, nobody's out there to sell people something that they don't want or they don't need. But when you're able to really get behind a product and a company that you believe in, and you know that you're able to help solve companies' challenges, that's where you're able to get. So if someone says, you know what, that's okay, Steve, I don't need this right now. It's like, well, wait, hear me out. We work with, some of your peers like A, B, and C. These are some of the challenges that they're facing, and this is how we've been able to help them. Would you be interested in learning a little bit more, say next week or the week after that? And then they're more receptive to say, okay, yeah, I am experiencing that challenge. Because anybody's typical response is when someone calls you that you don't know, you don't want to speak to them,
Right.
let
Of
alone
course.
alone a salesperson. And
Even if it's
especially now, yeah,
valuable, you don't even want to hear about what valuable is. They're just calling you. So yeah, I understand that.
exactly. So that's, being able to kind of, get that ebb and flow of it and kind of find your own rhythm, and just still having that belief, so you could find that window and be able to deliver your value prop. And it's not about you and your product or your company's product. It's about the prospect, how you can help their team and their organization with the real life challenges that they're facing, which oftentimes is going to help them, reduce their expenses, or it's going to help them improve operational efficiencies. And at the end of the day, it's about making their life easier to
Yeah.
some degree.
Right. And I think that leads us right into something that's another topic that comes along with sales, is something you need to develop. Well, of course, you need to grab everybody's attention, but then once you finally get it, you need to deliver trust. Somebody has to trust you. And I'm sure, as you know, in sales, that the first thing you were doing was developing a relationship with somebody, probably so you could even get that window in the first place. So with developing trust in sales tactics, what do you think is most important in I guess gaining that trust from the other person, whether it be on the other end of the phone, or the other end of the letter, or the other end of a social media post?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mention it, but it's not funny. It's actually kind of sad, because just sales itself as a profession has a stigma associated with it, where there's a lack of trust. Oftentimes, potential buyers or people think that salespeople are just in it for the commission, that they really don't care about the people that they're reaching out to and have their best interests in mind. And the way that you go about developing trust is, they hear the same pitch from everybody that's calling them. Hey, we're a world-class organization, we have the best solution. And it's not, you're not the best. You might be a great fit for this specific type of company and their profile, but there's no overarching best in anything, right? So it's having that mentality when you go about it and saying, look, let's learn a little bit more about each other, see if there could be a potential fit here, and then you're able to carry it from there. And one of the ways through my career that I've helped establish credibility and build trust, with my buyers, with my prospects as they're going through the sales cycle, is also, want to share with them where there are some potential pitfalls and why engagements don't work out. So, a specific example is that, as they go through their vendor evaluation process and they start narrowing it down to say, 3 vendors that they really like, One of the challenges is always implementation, because for our solutions, it would typically take around 90 days to get the solution implemented.
Hmm.
And if you're a buyer, say in procurement or technology, or any type of buyer for that instance, when you buy something, you want to make sure that it works. You don't want to go through this whole 8-month, 9-month sales cycle, spend 90 days or more on implementation, find out that it's not working. So the way that would build that credibility is say, okay, look, let me, and you don't wait for the buyer to ask you what the pitfalls are. It's you being transparent with the buyer and you just telling them, saying, hey, Ryan, one of the questions that you haven't asked, that we speak with a lot of other buyers, a lot of our clients, is they want to make sure, how can we make sure that this is an effective implementation, and what are some of those pitfalls? Because now that I'm able to share that with you and the team, Ryan, you guys will have a better understanding of what we need to do and have those right expectations to make sure that we have a smooth kickoff and get this implemented properly. And then you'd share a couple of the things. And just one of the key things, and this is still going to be relevant across various industries and all different types of product sets and solutions, is having that communication up front with the buyer, letting them know this is exactly what we need to make this engagement go smoothly. Because if it's not there, and if we're not holding each other accountable, then things are going to fall through the cracks, and we're going to be 60 days in, and the team is going to say, what's going on with this solution over here? Why is it not being set up properly? So it's
Right.
being able to be proactive and staying on top of this instead of taking a reactive approach. Because now, you spend all this time working, building up, and getting new business from an organization. So you want that to really start off on the right foot, and you want to stay ahead of any potential types of hiccups that may come up. And that way it also shows that you genuinely care about your buyer and that your new client. It's not just, hey, sign here on the dotted line, and now, you're off and running, flapping in the wind on your own. You want to be there to provide a great customer experience. And, over the last several years, there's been a huge shift where sales organizations are really placing a greater emphasis on that customer experience, because they realize that it costs a lot more money to get a new client than it does to get that client to renew with you. So once you do all that hard work, it's making sure that they're having a positive customer experience, you're keeping them, and then you can always potentially grow that account depending on your organization's specific solutions, or if you have other services that you offer, then you could cross-sell and upsell that account. Again, it's not coming from a greed perspective, but it's coming from a perspective of, now that you've seen how we can help you in one area of your organization, let's explore other areas where we could deliver similar value to some of our other client base.
Gotcha. So one of the things that you just said that really sparked my mind, that got my mind churning, was how much it costs to find somebody new versus keeping somebody happy, basically, in the most part. And the reason why that really resonates with me as an advisor is I think that one of the things that people don't get from advisors is attention or a call back. And that's something that I hear a lot, unfortunately, whether it's, a one-time commission or whatever the deal may be. It's the fact that you never got to talk to that person. And I always thought, why wouldn't you put the effort into an individual who already decided to work with you versus trying to find somebody new and develop trust versus somebody who never met you? There's data behind it that shows how costly it is. The most costly thing to me is not calling somebody who's already decided to work with me. So one of the things that why that resonates with me, and it's so important, is because I really make sure to try to call people back and to touch base with them, because I know that at least the one thing they want is a relationship. So with me leading into that, how did you feel, going into that area?
Yeah, and again, the whole premise behind that is it comes down to whether your company is focused on short-term gains, or if they're in it for the long run, right? Where and sometimes, right, if private equity gets involved, then I'm not blaming private equity, right? But when you get a lot of pressure to continuously bring in new accounts, that's if everybody in the organization is just hyper focused on new logos and new revenue, that's great. But if you don't have, from a structural standpoint within your organization, the capacity to support those new clients that you're bringing on, you're setting yourself up for failure there, because you're not able to manage those clients, to help provide them with what they need. And then at the end, it's going to end up coming to kick you in the butt, because you're not going to be able to when it's time for renewal, they're going to have a poor customer experience. They might not have never been able to, experience the results and receive the benefits that they were promised during the pre-sale cycle. So it's focusing on the bigger picture. And then as your company's building and you're growing, it's scaling that customer success team out, so they know, it's not just the sales rep now who's going to be responsible for bringing in new accounts, and now they're also trying to manage their existing accounts. Because at the end of the day, if they get overextended, right, usually it's going to be the customer, unfortunately. But let's be real. If you have numbers to hit and forecasts, the customer is going to be the person that gets put on the back burner, and it's not right. So being able to change that and say, look, let's take this from the long game, make sure that client's happy. And again, that's just another potential way where you could get referrals, or if that person that's just at your client, if they leave and go to another organization and they say, hey, we're evaluating vendors for a similar solution right now because they had a positive experience with the organization, that's a great way where now you're going to get those warm leads coming straight to you. So it's critical to provide a positive customer experience for your clients.
And I was going to say, I feel like you could almost argue back and forth about whether it's more beneficial to service current clients, because at least in my experience too, people come up with money for different reasons, whether a parent passes away, or they inherit something, or maybe they retired. I work with an old 401k, but they're still working, and then they retire and that comes in. It's just, for me, it's all about long-term relationships, because you never know when somebody's going to need your help. So I'm sure it's different for each area of sales, I would imagine. But I guess it just makes me think that I wonder if you couldn't argue, padding the bottom line just as well, rather than making those calls to cold calls, if you spent the time nurturing your current clients, like you said, getting referrals, getting more sales from them, rather even than looking for new business.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into play there, right? But to your point, absolutely. And I think with the commonality that would have and really transcend across all industries, or whether it's a transactional sale or if it's a more complex enterprise sale, is it's genuinely caring about your client. Because when you do that, then you'll take the time to be able to make sure, is everything okay, right? Even if I'm not directly involved with my clients right now and my job is to bring in new revenue, I want to be able to, have those open lines of communication with the customer success team that I'm working with to find out, how's that engagement going? Is everything good here? If it is, great. If not, okay. Is it something that we need to do? Is it something that we need to, that the client needs to do? And then let's help them, let's address this together, because you never want to point the finger at the client and say, hey, this is what's going wrong and it's your fault. We want to take that collaborative approach, because we're in a business engagement together. So it's not just a one-way street, and that having that mentality to really care, and you have to really care, because if you don't, and if you're just about the money, it comes through. I mean, there's some folks that are out there, they'll pretend to care and be genuine, but at some point, the true colors are going to come out at the end of the day. So it's really knowing, what's in your heart and the type of character that you are, and being able to have that, carry over into your business, your professional life, and really caring and giving your client everything that they need.
Yeah. And I feel like throughout the podcast, we've touched on different areas of mindset in terms of rejection, how you have to strengthen your mindset, the mindset of caring about your customer to make sure you're getting the sale and keeping people happy. Is there anything else, I guess, that you would add to the area of mindset, or something else that you think attributes to sales? And really, why is mindset, so important? One of the things I've been thinking about recently is the fact of, I used to think this was really hokey, but believing in yourself and confidence has really become a strategy for me, because I used to think of it as cockiness, but really, patting yourself on the back for things you don't deserve isn't what I'm talking about. What I mean is just really believing in yourself and thinking you can do it, doing the right thing, and knowing you're helping somebody. Those are things that really shine through. What do you think about mindset and sales, and how it all ties together?
Yeah, so Ryan, you just hit the nail on the head right there. You took took the words right out of my mouth. And I was going
Nice.
to say the biggest thing it is it's having that self confidence, because you're dealing with rejection. And the thing too is that even the best reps, best managers, best sales leaders, you're going to go through periods where you're going to have your peaks and your valleys. It's not going to be one progressive positive correlation throughout your entire career, right? And
Right.
in sales and a lot of times in life, success is not linear. There's going to be setbacks. It's going to be able to, put your ego aside if you have one. Just if you don't, you can take down the best of people. Look in the mirror, say, okay, is there a lesson that I could learn from any of these particular losses? Being able to not only extract those lessons, but then apply it going forward, and all the while still having that self confidence. Where if you have a bad quarter, even a bad year, because you could have a couple key deals that are hanging out there waiting for the end of the year, and if they fall through, that could mess up your entire year,
Right.
right? So it's knowing, okay, I had a bad year, but that doesn't make me a bad sales rep. It doesn't make me a bad person. It's still knowing that, okay, let me recall the past successes that I had and being able to bring those back. And I would like to just really relive them, feel the emotion, what it felt like, remember that you were elated when something went exactly the way that you planned it would. Everything was clicking, and know that you're going to get there again, and being able to still have that self-confidence and that passion that you could bring to the table each and every day. And that's something that everybody in sales is challenged with. And the best reps are the ones that are able to still be confident even in the midst of having a bad quarter, because you're still going to have either new deals that are going on, other deals that you're looking to close, and you need to bring the best version of yourself and project that confidence. Because if you're not confident, other people are going to tell, and they're going to say, well, if this person seems unsure of himself or herself, well, now that's making me question whether or not I want to do business with that person, that organization. And like you said, it's not a cockiness, um, because you don't want to be cocky at all. I mean,
Right.
I know I don't want to deal with people that are cocky, but it's being confident and having the humility to go about and conduct your business. I think those are the two big things right there when it comes to a mindset perspective. And just knowing that if life does knock you down in sales or just life in general, being able to pick yourself back up and continue to move forward, and know that you're going to continue to develop as a person, and it's going to help set you up for success if you embrace these challenges and these struggles that you may be dealing with during the present time. So that's one of the reasons why I love being in sales so much, is that it's really helped me build up such a strong mindset that I'm able to apply it to all aspects of my life. And if I was in a different profession, who knows? I might not have the same mindset that I have today. So, I love celebrating the wins that the team gets. At the same time, it's embracing those losses and taking those pieces and learning from them. And this is just a little extra thing. One of the key things that I like to do, is whether it's a win or a loss, is documenting it into one centralized place and taking away those key lessons. Because over the years, you might, for some of these are going to blend together. You might forget some of these key details. So if you have one centralized place that you could easily, access, now you can say, okay, this was this deal. What was the lesson here? What was here? And you basically build a nice little library for yourself, and you're able to carry all of that knowledge and all of the experiences that you had, and take that forward with you. You can share it with other people on your team, other people, other your colleagues that are working at different companies. So it's just a tremendous amount of wealth that if you're not documenting it, it's going to go by the wayside, and that would be a shame.
Such a good point to kind of make a journal of it, because you're right, it does blend together. And I think it's easy to forget about the good feelings, and even to write about the bad ones to see what really happened. Because I've realized sometimes as an advisor, especially when I was starting, something that weighed so heavy then, I look back and I go, that wasn't even really a mistake. I didn't, somebody just didn't like me for a second. I didn't even cost them any money. I didn't hurt them, whatever the situation. It's just when you're younger, things I think feel heavier and hurt more. It's nice to look back at that and really gauge how far you come, taking your wins and remembering them, and making that something that's known and important. And I know, and I really love that journal idea in terms of everything we talked about and leaving with that great bit of advice. And maybe you just gave it, but is there anything extra? Is there any sales golden nugget that you think you could deliver, I guess, to the audience who's listening now, who may be either struggling with anything we talked about, just getting started in the mailroom, working their way up, wherever somebody may be? Do you have any extra advice for them?
Yeah, so I mean, the big one that I would have there was the journaling. But the two other golden rules that I live by is to, one, do everything with integrity, and that's important not only when people are watching you, but when people are not watching you. That's when someone's true character comes out, right? And you want to make sure that you're doing everything to your best ability, and you're not trying to cut corners. Because if you are, at some point, you're going to get caught, and your reputation is what you have, right? And
Right.
people work for years to develop a strong reputation, and that could all get shattered with one bad action.
Right.
So it's really thinking about, making sure that you're doing everything in an integrous way. Um, and the other golden rule that I have is to never burn a bridge. And if something happens, and if you're in an emotional state, and it could be good or bad, right? Sometimes, if you get an email that comes in or something, you may need what my rule is if you need to do it, sleep on it for the night, get up in the morning, and then type it. Even, maybe type it all out that same day to get those emotions out,
Hmm.
and then you delete it. And then the next day, when you have a clear head, you can come back when you're not in that emotionally charged state, because you never know, one of either if it's going to be a colleague, a client, a personal relationship that you have.
Right.
Life's funny, and paths, they part, and then they cross back again later on. And you don't want to make a brash decision in the heat of a moment because something you might have not have worked out the way that you wanted it to. So that'd be the other key piece of advice that I give to any listeners out there, and that'd be applicable again, whether or not you're in sales, or regardless of your industry or where you are within your own professional career.
That's a great point. Those are great things. And I think even beyond sales, those are, life lessons that people can live by. Something I've even experienced myself, where I may meet somebody 10 years later of somebody that I just really disliked, whether it was in high school, and they're a completely different person. Whatever happened in their life to make them there, they're completely different. And I think that's a good reason of realizing that people do change and people do adjust and things happen. So it's really good not to burn a bridge and keep those relationships. And I think that really comes into also being the bigger person in most situations, and realizing when something's not going your way to try to leave it as cordial as possible. And if somebody yells at you, not to yell back, like you said, because I just think it shows a lot more respect. And that goes a long way in terms of the integrity, like you just said, making sure that you're doing the right thing. To me, nothing delivers heavier than when somebody finds out that you did something for them and like you weren't the person to tell them, if that makes sense, whether
Mm-hmm.
there's a positive effect in the background and they found out you did it, or whatever the reason. When it gets delivered from an outside source or for somebody else and they realize you helped them or you did the right thing, when nobody was looking, that's the time when you really shine. And so I look at those opportunities when nobody's looking as an opportunity to impress somebody. I don't expect them to see it, but I know if somebody sees this, even though they're not right now, I know it's going to be way more positive, than it could have been. And that's the way I look at it. And, I really appreciate you taking your time to deliver your story and your mindset and how you stayed so strong through the whole time, something that I'll use for myself, even things that I learned personally, just listening to you. You sound like you have a great heart and a lot of passion for helping people. One of the things I love the most is when I talk to people is their language. And one of the things you always said is when the team gets the sale. You never talked about Steve really you talked about your story, but you always talked about the team. And I think, like you were mentioning, there was a specialist who would answer questions. You always brought back to the team. And I think that shows a lot of character in yourself. And it shows the importance of just the fact that I can feel it listening to you, that what you do does deliver. And it is important to be that person because it does show energy like that is real. And I just wanted to say thanks for coming on. and I appreciate all your time.
Hey, Ryan, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me today. Really enjoyed our conversation and look forward to potentially another chat with you here in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, if you have any sales questions, if anything sparked an interest here, and you want to talk to Steve, you can connect on LinkedIn if that's where it is below. But Steve, where exactly can they find you?
Yeah, so I go by my full first name on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn as Stephen with a PH and my last name Pronechen over there at LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me over there. If you have any questions, you can drop me a DM there and I'm happy to get back to you. And even if you're not in sales, if you're just looking for some other type of career advice, if you're a recent grad and if you're looking for some guidance, I'm happy to give you a few minutes of my time.
Yeah. And I've been following Steve before we did this podcast. I love the inspirational content. I love the videos when you're walking around, quick, short, and give somebody a little boost for the day. And following, the advice. I liked I liked what I saw. So I really wanted to talk to you, and I'm glad I did. So I'm sure we'll do this again. But I appreciate your time, and I look forward to doing this another time.
Hey, likewise, Ryan. You have a good
Thanks.
one, and we'll be in touch.
Yes. Thank you.